Welcome to Between the Verses, Real Talk, Real Faith with Kelly LaVerne. This is Eavesdrop, where we listen a little closer to the women between the verses. So let's get into it. We need to talk about Hagar. And I'm going to say this up front. This one might sit a little deeper because Eve was about influence, Sarah was about waiting, but Hagar is about something, being in something that you didn't choose and still having to carry it. And if we're honest, some people are living in that right now. So let me tell you about Hagar. Now, she can be found in the Bible in Genesis chapters 16 um, and Genesis chapter 21. Hagar was Egyptian. She wasn't a part of the promised family. She was a servant, which means before her story even starts, her life is already shaped by someone else's decision. She didn't have full control. She didn't have authority. Her life moved based on where she was placed. And then Sarah makes a decision. And just like that, Hagar becomes part of something she didn't create. No conversation, no choice, and her body becomes the situation or the solution rather to someone else's frustration. So now, just to give a little, let's pause for a teaching moment. Hagar was Sarah's servant. We talked about Sarah last time and kind of, introduced Hagar. She was her servant. And Sarah was given a promise by God, or rather Abraham, that he would be the father of many nations. Sarah was barren. Sarah got tired of waiting and decided she's gonna help God or she's gonna fix it on her own. So she sends in Hagar to sleep with her husband. Now, in the Bible times, that was allowed, that was permissible. She was the handmaiden, and that's how things were done. So now we find Hagar. She has to go in, do what needs to be done, and now she conceives and everything changes. Because now, right? She isn't just a servant anymore. She's carrying something Sarah couldn't. And you could feel the tension because something in her changes now. And Sarah changes too. And what started as a solution has turned into a situation. Here we go. And now Hagar is dealing with the weight of the role, the tension in the house, and the consequences of a decision she didn't make. And then when things get uncomfortable, Sarah responds by treating her harshly. Now, wait a minute, ladies, girlfriends. Wasn't it Sarah's idea? Hagar didn't come up with this plan. Sarah wanted to fix it. She wanted to help God. And now look, and now Sarah is treating Hagar harshly. And what does Hagar do? She runs. Now she's pregnant, she's alone, and she runs into the wilderness. There was no other home, for her to go to. She couldn't go stay with her girlfriend, couldn't go back to her parents. She had to stay there, but she ran to the wilderness. That was the only place she could go. Wasn't no hotels. She couldn't go sleep on one of her girlfriends or homegirls' sofas for the night. She was out there alone, y'all, and we just skate right over that part. We don't and I know I haven't been in a wilderness. I've been in a park, I've been in a forest or whatever, but I've never been in a wilderness. I can only, go by what I see off TV and what I can imagine about how the wilderness would have been at that time. I mean, there's nothing out there. And ladies, being pregnant, that's the last place you want to be. So we don't need to, we kind of rush past that part. But this isn't about her making a move. She was trying to survive. She had to get away because Sarah was just, it was that bad, right? We don't even talk about that part. Now, I mean, get it. You pregnant and the treatment was so bad, you just had to get up and just leave, run into the wilderness, nowhere to go. The Bible doesn't tell us if she had, resources, but as a servant, I don't think she would have had her own, money or whatever was needed to survive. So this is about her survival. And we don't know what got into Sarah that made her treat this woman so harsh that she would flee into the wilderness. But it happened, ladies. Okay. We just skip over all that, but it's in there. It happened. So while she's in that wilderness, this is where everything changes for Hagar because the Bible says that God found her. Think about that. Not the other way around. She wasn't searching, she wasn't praying a perfect prayer. She was trying to get away, and God found her anyway. And then he does something powerful. He calls her by her name, Hagar. See, that matters because in a world where she was overlooked, God saw her specifically. He found her. We hear about people that go into the wilderness and they have, a God experience, they find God, or even a, wilderness situation in your life. But this is deep. I know we ain't trying to be deep, but and then, yeah, yes we are. We want to go between the verses. So sometimes we got to dig deep. So it's deep because the Bible says God found her and calls her by name. That's something. But then check this out, y'all. God tells her something difficult. He tells her to go back. And we're not going to rush over this part either, because sometimes God will tell you to go back into something, but with a promise attached. I love it. Now, you might think, well, why didn't God just set her up in her own little? I mean, He's God. He could have done anything in her own little house or send her somewhere else to be in a community. No, He tells her to go back, but He promises something. He gives her a promise of her own, not through Sarah, not through Abraham, directly to her. And then he says something she probably needed more than anything. He says, I have heard your affliction. God heard her. She wasn't ignored. He didn't dismiss her because, after all, she was a servant. He heard her. Sometimes, I don't know about you, girlfriends, but when you're going through something, sometimes you just need somebody to you feel like just to see me, just to hear me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm going through? Do you see me here? And God did that for her. He heard her. That's powerful. And then this part, this part is also powerful because Hagar does something nobody else really does like this. She names God El Roy, the God who sees me. Not Abraham, not Sarah. Hagar names God, a servant, a woman in the wilderness, a woman in a situation she didn't choose. She's the one who says, God sees me. Mm. Okay, ladies. Wow, let's keep going. Okay, let's bring this a little closer because this isn't just Hagar. This is being pulled into something you didn't ask for. This is being affected by someone else's decision. This is being used, overlooked, and pushed aside. This is carrying responsibility that doesn't seem fair. And then when it gets hard, you're the one left to deal with it alone, trying to figure it out, trying to survive. And maybe you didn't choose it, but you still have to walk it out. Mm. So this this part really hits because years later, it happens again. So she did go back, she listened, obeyed God, and then years later, she it happens again. She's sent away with her son this time into the wilderness, back into the wilderness. No plan, no security, just survival. She has to again run. I mean, run for her life now with her child out into the wilderness. No means, no plan, nothing. And then while she's out there, the water runs out. She puts her son down because she can't bear to watch him die. And that right there, woo, my God, that's a breaking point. I can't even imagine. She's aware of the circumstances. She knows that if they don't have water, they can't survive. And she can't watch. It had to be to the point where he must have been near death because she puts him down because she can't watch. My God. But then God responds again. He he hears, he speaks, he reminds her of the promise. And then this part right here. He opens her eyes and she sees a well. My God. The provision was already there. She just couldn't see it yet, y'all. It was there. God removed whatever was clouding her vision and she saw the well. And y'all know what was in the well, right? Some water. So let me tell you what this really is, friend to friend. Hagar's story is about being placed somewhere you didn't choose, right? Being hurt in the middle of it, being pushed aside when it's over, and still being seen by God anyway. That part, that part, still being seen by God anyway. Because here's the truth, people might mishandle you, they might overlook you, they might move on from you, but God, He doesn't. He doesn't. So, our Monday move, and if you just popped in, the Monday move is about us not only hearing, but about doing something, right? So, all right, here's the Monday move. I want you to ask yourself this: where have I felt unseen? Where did you feel overlooked, dismissed, forgotten? And then ask this: do I really believe God sees me there? Wherever that place is that you feel unseen, overlooked, dismissed, forgotten, do you believe that God sees you there just like he saw Hagar? See, I'm telling y'all, these ladies, whoo, Do you believe God sees you there? Not in theory, not in general, but in detail, in your situation, in your pain. Because if you can grab a hold to that, everything changes. Pain might not go away. Situation might not immediately change, but you know that God is there with you. He sees you. He knows what you're going through. And that just makes it a little bit, no, really a lot easier to bear because you can trust him. You know that he got it no matter what happened, no matter they did whatever they did, they caused you to run out into the wilderness. God sees you out there. And I bet if you think about it, he's been providing while you were in that wilderness. I'm sure you had food, something. May not been what you wanted, but ladies, we know how to whip up something, make it work. I'm sure you had water. Listen, it may not been bottled. Sometimes we got to go back the old school way and turn on that faucet. Now I know we can boil it, we can filter it, whatever we got to do, but we still had it. We still have it in the wilderness. So if you can grab a hold to that, man, if you ever felt like you've been put in something you didn't choose, you were left to deal with something alone, or your story didn't matter as much as someone else's, let me say this clearly: you are not overlooked. God sees you, hears you, and he knows exactly where you are, even in the wilderness. Hagar went through some stuff, ladies, and some of us can probably relate. It may not have been that exact situation, but some of us can probably relate to having to go somewhere that looks like a wilderness to us, right? All right. So we get ready to wrap this up. I'm going to leave it right here because Hagar's story, it doesn't just speak, it meets you. And again, if you've been feeling unseen, you're not. You might say, well, how do you know? You don't even know me. God said it. If he could see Hagar, a servant, now let me just say this: servants were considered a lower class of people. Not my rules, but that's how it was. And it's so striking because for God to see a servant in the wilderness, the lowest, you know, one of the lowest roles, if you will, very valuable, very important, but one of the, the lowest roles. He can see her, Hagar, in the wilderness. He knows what happened. That's how I know. So if he can find Hagar in the wilderness, if he can provide for Hagar in the wilderness in a situation that she didn't cause, he could do it for you. He could do it for me. That's how I know. So if you're feeling unseen, you're not. You might just be in a place where God is about to show you something you couldn't see before. Mm, wow. You were too wrapped up in whatever was going on and you couldn't see it. So now that you're in the wilderness, you're more focused, you're more in tune, you're more aware of what's going on. And God could be just about to blow your mind. All right, girlfriends and friends, I'll meet you right back here next time between the verses. Real talk, real faith. I'm Kelli LaVerne.